Hey everybody, Mrs. Blanchett. We're doing 6-9 multiplication of decimals today. Here are the things that you're going to need for today. As always, whenever you're watching a video with me, I would like that you had paper and pencil or whiteboard and markers so you can do some of the problems with me. Today, you can use a calculator if you have one to practice some problems with me. You'll need your math journal and multiplication chart. I would like you to turn to your math journal page 219. There is a math message that I would like you to do on your own right now. It's going to take everybody a different amount of time to do it. So go ahead and look at the top. It says Tori has 8 blocks. Each block is 1.2 centimeters high. If Tori stacks the blocks, what will the height of the stack be? So you're going to figure out how many centimeters her stack is going to be. I want you to pause the video right now and go ahead and solve it. And once you have your answer, unpause the video. All right, so there's a few different ways for you to solve this problem. Ultimately, my goal is for you to be able to do this problem by the end of the lesson using multiplication to get the correct answer. So some of you might have did something maybe like this, where you were taking 1 2/10 and maybe you added them together to get 9.6 centimeters. This would be an okay strategy, but in 5th grade, we really don't want to do repeated addition anymore. We are past that. Does it work? Yes. Is it a strategy? Sure. But it kind of breaks the 2 rules for 5th grade math. It's not very efficient. It took you a while to get your answer, and it's not very accurate because you're adding a lot of numbers and there's a lot of room for mistakes. So that is why I would prefer that you don't do this strategy. Some of you might have looked at it like you were doing 1.2 times 8, and maybe you multiplied the 8 times 0.2 first, and then you added that to 8 times 1. And if you did that, you would get 1.6 plus 8, and you would still get the same answer as 9.6. And I'm going to move the 8 over here. You would still get the same answer, just using a different strategy. Today, I'm going to show you a different strategy that we're going to learn how to do together. So if you couldn't solve the math message, that's okay. The goal is to be able to solve it by the end of the lesson. And if you use a strategy to get there, nice job. If you got to 9.6 in some way, maybe a different way than I showed you, nice job. So moving on, what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of work through a few problems with you. So now would be the time where you're going to use your whiteboard and marker or paper and pencil to do some problems with me. So I'm going to kind of just talk and just show you something kind of as a review from the other day. So the other day we talked about this strategy. We talked about the estimation strategy as one that you could use when you are multiplying numbers and decimals. So if you look at my whiteboard, I have 110 times 2 8/10 equals 308. And then if you look, if I took the 110 and I turned it into 11, and I'm still multiplying it by the 2 and the 8, but now it's 28 hundredths. Now my answer is 3 8/100. And then if I take 11 again and I multiply it by 2 8/10, my answer is 30 8/10. So the biggest thing that I want you to notice is all over here with these products. So remember, the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So what we notice about the products is, and I want you to kind of look at it right now and see what you notice about the products. It's pretty easy to figure out, but I want you to notice the pattern. All right, so first thing I notice is that each of them has the same digits, 308, 308, 308. The difference is where the decimal is. So it all depends on what numbers I'm multiplying over here, and that will depend on where my decimal goes in my product. Okay, so that's kind of the same kind of pattern we're going to work through now in a new problem. And if you notice, this is the same problem from the math message. So it was 1.2 times 8. So if you have a calculator, what I would like you to do is I would like you to do 1.2 times 8 on your calculator. And then go ahead and get an answer. And if you did it, you would notice that 1.2 times 8 is 9.6. All right. If you have a calculator, go ahead and do 1 2/10 again times 0.8 times 8/10. Go ahead and do that on your calculator. And I'm just going to write down the answer while you do that. And hopefully you notice that your answer was 96 hundredths. Now for the last step, and if you notice, I put a big box around this because this is what we're going to do today. What we're going to do is we are going to take the decimals out. So if you notice, I took the decimal out of 1 2/10. Now I just have 12. And I took the decimal out of 8/10, and now I just have 8. So now I can just do 12 times 8. If you have a calculator, you can do it. If you know your multiplication facts, you can also do it, and it's 96. So again, this is what we are noticing over here, and I'm going to circle these numbers. Again, we have the same digits over here for our product. If you notice, we have 9 and a 6. The decimal point is just being moved around because of the numbers that we're multiplying over here. So the strategy that we're going to use today is when we're multiplying decimals is we're going to take the decimal point out. We're going to multiply the whole numbers together, and then we're going to get an answer, and then we can put back the decimal point. So we're going to get some practice doing this right now. So give me just a second. I need to clear off one of my whiteboards because I ran out because I don't have enough to do all these problems with you. So if you have a paper, pencil, whiteboard, marker, go ahead and write down this problem. We're going to do this one together. I don't want you using your calculators anymore. So I want you to write down 6 8/10 times 2 1/10. So these numbers that are on my whiteboard. All right, so first thing what we're going to do, since this is called the estimation strategy, step number 1 is going to be to make our estimate. So I'm just going to write that down. So step number 1 is to make an estimate. How do we do that? We learned this the other day. So what I do is you're going to change your numbers to whole numbers so I can multiply it in my head and I can get a rough estimate on what my answer should be. So I'm going to change 6 8/10 to 7, and then I'm going to change 2 1/10 to the number 2. So this would be your estimate, and when I multiply that out, I get 14. Okay, so for number 1, our first step, our estimate is 14. What does that mean? Why do we do that? That means that our answer, when we multiply 6 8/10 times 2 1/10, our answer is going to be pretty close to 14. It's not going to be exactly 14, but it's going to be pretty close. Okay, so now for step number 2, you don't have to write this down. I'm just kind of organizing it for us. Now we're going to multiply as if the factors were whole numbers. So that means we're going to ignore the decimals. We're going to take the decimals out. So on your paper, on your whiteboard, I want you to write 68 times 21. That's pretty weird, right? So what we did, again, for step 2, you take the decimal points out of your original numbers and you rewrite them as whole numbers. This is why you needed your multiplication charts today, because you're going to be doing some multiplication, and it's been a while for some of us. So now we can go through and multiply. So hit pause on the video and go ahead and multiply this through. All right, so I'm going to quickly go through each row. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 6 is 6. So your top row should be 68. I'm going to add my 0 because that 2 represents 20. 2 times 8 is 16. I'm going to carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12. Plus 1 is 13. So your second row should be 1,360. And then when I add them, you get 1,428. So now I go back. Step number 3 is now where I have to put the decimal point in my answer. Okay, so I know if you go way back up to the top, I know in my head that 6 and 8/10 times 2 and 1/10 cannot be 1,428. That's way too big. Okay, so now what I do is I go to my estimate. My estimate says that the answer is going to be close to 14. So I go back down here and I'm going to put the decimal point somewhere within these numbers so that it's close to 14. So I'm going to put the decimal point right here. So the correct answer, if you were to do this on a calculator, is 14 and 28/10. So 6 and 8/10 times 2 and 1/10 is 14 and 28/10. You can now multiply decimals and get the actual correct answer. It's actually pretty exciting. All right, so let's try another one, and I'm going to let you do this a little bit more independently on your own, and we'll walk through each step together. So I want you to do this problem on your whiteboard. So we're going to do 82.3 times 6.4. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. First, write down that problem. Okay, and then remember what the steps are. So step number 1 is our estimate. So right now, I would like you to change 82 and 3/10 to the closest whole number, probably that ends with a 0. And then change 6 and 4/10 to a whole number that you could multiply it by this number by in your head. You might want to change that to another one that ends with a 0. Okay, so go ahead and do that and get your estimate. You might want to pause the video so then you can check it with me. All right, so I'm going to change 82 and 3/10 to 80. And I'm going to change 6 and 4/10 to 6 because I can do 8 times 6 in my head. So 8 times 6 is 48. And then I add that 0. So my estimate is 480. That means when I get my answer, I'm going to, it should be close to 480. Remember, step number 2 is where we multiply, as if the decimal points were not there. So now what I would like you to do is multiply 823 times 64. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Pause the video if you need to, and then check back with me going through those steps pretty quickly. All right, so I'm going to go through the first row. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8, carry the 1, add the 1 is 9. 4 times 8 is 32. So your first row should be 3,292. I'm going to add the 0 because that 6 represents a 60. 6 times 3 is 18. Carry the 1 again. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 1 is 13. Carry the 1. 6 times 8 is 48. Plus 1 is 49. So your second row, big number, 49,380. So then I'm going to add these together, and I get 52,672. Now, remember step number 3 is you put the decimal point in your answer so it is close to your estimate. So what I want you to do now, if you did not get this correct answer, write it on your board, 52672. And now I want you to put the decimal point in so it's close to our estimate of 480. Because I know that 82.3 times 6 and 4/10 is not 52,672. This is way too big. So we need to put the decimal point in here. Go ahead and pause the video and do that. Or you can just keep watching. So I'm going to put the decimal point here. So the correct answer is 526 and 72 hundredths. Okay, so 526 is pretty close to 480. That is how I figured out where to put the decimal point. All right, so those are the 3 steps. Pretty easy to follow them as long as you do it correctly and you remember what the 3 steps are. So your journal page for today kind of does it very nicely and it reminds you of the steps. So go ahead and go to journal page. Go ahead back to it, the one that we were working on. Go to page 219. All right. If you notice, today has page 219. It also has page 220. I am not teaching you the strategy on page 220. I like that strategy, but I think more of you will be successful using this strategy. So that is why I chose to only do this one. So I'm going to show you the steps and what you're going to be doing on your own for each problem. So it says solve problems 1 to 3 using the following method. Look, step number 1, same thing we just did. Make an estimate. Step 2, multiply as if the factors were whole numbers. Step 3, use your estimate to place the decimal point in the product. So the same things that we just did in the video, you're going to be doing in your journal. I do not want you using your calculators anymore. I want to see the work in your journal. Can you use the calculator to check your answer? Sure. If you get it wrong, I would redo your multiplication. But I definitely want you to be able to do this on your own. Okay? All right. So if you notice, number 1, very close to the numbers that we just did in the problem on the whiteboard. And then problem 2 has a slightly bigger number, 189.6. So this is going to be a little bit of a tougher number to multiply. Number 2 is going to be a little tougher. So hang in there. Problem 3 is probably the easiest one. Okay, so if you're looking to start with an easier one, maybe you want to start with number 3. Okay, again, if you guys need any help, a few people did email me today. You can email me. My email address is in your bug book, or you can attend I would also like everybody to attend our Google Meet tomorrow, or it's on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. So attend those so we can help you in any way and know that you're doing your work. Nice job, everybody. I'll see you the next time.